The sky above was quiet, painted with soft blue clouds drifting lazily. Birds flew without a sound. The wind whispered gently across the silver trees. On this alien world, silence was sacred. The people of Varella's tribe spoke softly, moved, carefully, and respected peace. But today something broke the silence. A deep rumble shook the forest ground. Then came the strange roars, loud, angry, and fast. Varella's heart jumped in her chest. She dropped her water flask and turned toward the sound. It was coming from the human outpost, just beyond the forest's edge. She froze in place. Ears rang. The sound felt like claws scraping inside her skull. She had never heard anything like it. It wasn't thunder. It wasn't an animal. It was something worse. Her tribe had warned her. "Stay away from the humans," they said. "Play with dangerous machines," her mother whispered. "They use sound as a weapon," her grandmother added. But Varella was curious. She moved slowly, step by step, through the glowing grass. Her soft lavender skin shimmered in the sunlight, but she stayed hidden behind the tall silver leaves. Her eyes locked on the edge of the human camp. Metal walls, strange lights, spinning fans, and there it was again, that noise. She dropped to her knees, clutching her long ears. The sound hit her chest like a hammer, shaking her to her core. It was wild and chaotic, like war drums being attacked by lightning. She felt like her brain would melt. Was this pain or fear, or both? Varella peeked through the bushes. A human stood there, alone, shirtless, sweat on his brow. He held a long tool in one hand and wiped his face with the other. But what shocked her more was what he stood near, a black, box-like device with glowing lights and shaking parts. The noise was coming from that box, and he wasn't afraid. He was smiling. Varella's mouth dropped open. The human, tall, tan-skinned, strong, seemed to enjoy the madness. He even moved his head up and down to the beat of the noise. What kind of creature was this? She turned away quickly and crawled back behind a tree, her heart racing. She sat there, breathing heavily. Her ears felt hot. Her chest was tight. She had never experienced such a violent wave of sound. No wonder the elders feared it. No wonder no one wanted to go near the humans. But something strange happened next, as the noise continued. Something in her started to change. The sharp pain in her ears began to soften. The rhythm underneath the sound started to stand out. There were patterns like a deep heartbeat, steady and powerful. She closed her eyes and listened. Her hands stopped shaking. Her fear didn't disappear. But it felt different now, more like fire than ice. She shook her head, confused. Why was her body reacting like this? Suddenly, the noise stopped. Varella opened her eyes. Everything went silent again. Too silent. She peeked once more and gasped. The human was staring directly at her. She ducked. Had he seen her? Breath, pressing herself into the ground, hoping he'd forget. But then she heard soft footsteps coming closer. Dry leaves crunching. Her stomach tightened. A voice spoke deep and calm in the human tongue. "You okay there?" She didn't answer. Couldn't answer. She knew a few human words, but fear made her mind go blank. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said again slowly. He stepped forward, holding a strange flat box. His voice came from it now. Soft music, calmer, quieter. A new rhythm, still strange, but less violent. Varella looked up at him. He crouched, smiling. "It's music," he said, pointing to the box. "Not a weapon, it's just music." She blinked, confused. Music? That was music? She had heard of music. But on her planet, music was wind chimes, soft flutes, and crystal bowls. This was thunder and fire. He saw her confusion and didn't laugh. He only said, "This one's called hard rock. Hard rock." Varella stood up slowly, her legs trembling. Her ears still buzzed, but they didn't hurt now. The human stepped back. "My name's Jake. I work here," he said. "What's your name?" She hesitated, then whispered Varella. He nodded, not moving too close. "Varella," he repeated kindly. "Nice to meet you." She looked at the small black box. Again, It didn't roar now, it whispered. The soft hum of a guitar, the low thump of drums, it felt like it was breathing. She touched her chest. Her own heartbeat was in sync with it. Jake turned the volume down even more. Want to sit and listen, just for a bit? She didn't answer, but she didn't run either. Instead, she took one slow step forward. The noise that once made her flinch was now calling her closer, and she wasn't sure why. She expected him to turn it off. That's what any sane person would do if someone flinched, covered their ears, and looked like they were about to run. But Jake didn't. He just turned the dial up just a little and smiled, like the noise was something beautiful. Varela stood frozen. Her bare feet pressed into the cool grass, her heart pounding louder than the music itself. She didn't understand, was this a test? A trap? Or did he simply not care? But then, something even more strange happened. He offered her food. Jake walked back into the human camp, returned with a metal container, and placed it near her feet. No sudden moves, no loud words, just a gesture, a peace offering. My steam rose. From the box, carrying the scent of something spicy and warm, her stomach twisted. She hadn't eaten in 2 days. She looked at him, then at the food, and finally sat down. Her legs folded tightly under her as she kept her distance, watching. Every breath he took, he didn't approach her. Instead, he turned back to his strange machine and clicked a few buttons. The roaring sound faded into something slower, deeper. Still powerful, but calmer, almost thoughtful. The strange rhythms filled the air like a rising tide. "You've never heard this kind of music before?" Jake said without looking at her. Verla blinked. "Was that a question or a statement?" Continued. "You looked terrified yesterday. I figured I'd try something softer today." She stayed quiet. Jake scratched his head. "This one's called a ballad. Same instruments, different speed. Think of it like breathing instead of shouting." Varela didn't know what a ballad was, but the way he said it, gentle and slow, it felt like the music itself, a rhythm. In his voice, a warmth she wasn't used to from humans. She reached toward the food and took a bite. Her eyes widened. It was unlike anything from her planet. Rich, spicy, soft, and crunchy at once. It tasted wild, just like the music, Jake noticed. Her surprise and laughed softly. "Yeah, first bite's always a shock." She didn't smile, not yet, but her shoulders relaxed. The sound continued. Filling the space between them, she closed her eyes for a moment, listening. The pain she felt before didn't come back. Instead, the beats started to echo in her chest, like a second heartbeat. Fingers tapped the ground one at a time, slow, then faster. Jake glanced her way. "See, not so scary when you give it a chance?" Her eyes opened. She met his gaze for the first time. "You like pain?" she asked quietly, her voice thick with accent but clear. Jake looked confused. "Pain? No, not this. This is pleasure. Intense, maybe, but not pain." Varela tilted her head. "My ears. They cried yesterday." Jake chuckled. "That's because I was blasting metal, not the best first impression." She didn't understand all his words, but she understood. His tone, he wasn't mocking her. He wasn't dangerous. He was sharing. She looked at the machine again. "You play it so loud." Jake walked over to a chair, sat down, and leaned back with a sigh. Because the world's loud sometimes. And music like this makes it feel smaller. It makes it feel smaller. Varela turned his words over in her mind. Her world was silent, but her thoughts, they were never quiet. Memories of hunger, loss, war, maybe humans had those too. Maybe their music wasn't madness, but medicine. The track changed again. This time, it was sharper, faster drums, screaming voices, and crashing. Metal. She flinched again, but didn't run. Jake glanced at her. "It's too much." She shook her head slowly. "No, strange. But something in it speaks." He smiled wide. "Now you're hearing it." She didn't know what he meant. But part of her wanted to. He picked up a small, smooth object, something like a helmet with two padded arms. "These are called headphones," he said. "Want to try?" She hesitated. But the way he held them carefully, gently, she felt less afraid. She took the headphones in her hands. Her long violet fingers trembled as she placed them over her ears. Jake tapped a button. The music filled her head instantly. No distance, no space. Just her and the storm of sound. She gasped, her eyes wide. Every vibration moved through her bones. Her heart raced. Her hands clutched the air, but she didn't pull them off. Jake waited. Finally, Varela removed them. Her breathing was heavy. "That," she whispered, "is not silence." He grinned. "No, it's not. But sometimes, it's better." She stared at the headphones, then at the human. Maybe sound wasn't the enemy. Maybe silence wasn't always peace. And maybe, just maybe, she was starting to understand. Varela stood outside the human outpost again, alone than the twin moons of her world. The sky was dark, but the memory of the sound still echoed in her chest.
Ow.
Something had changed inside her. She didn't know what it was, but it pulled her back here. She had told herself she wouldn't return. The first time nearly broke her. The second time made her feel strange, but now she needed to know more. About the sound, about the feeling, about Jake. She stepped closer. The camp was quiet, but a soft light flickered behind the metal door. She didn't knock. She didn't need to. The door opened before she reached it. Jake stood there, holding a cup and wearing a tired smile. "Had a feeling you'd come back?" Varela looked down. Her bare feet were covered in dirt. Her long silky robe was torn from the forest thorns, but Jake didn't seem to care. He stepped aside and let her in. Inside, the room was filled with strange objects. Posters with wild creatures, tools she didn't recognize. Glowing strings of colored light hanging across the ceiling and in the center. The black box again, humming softly. "I've got something new for you, Jake," said Varela, narrowed. Her eyes, "Is it loud?" Jake laughed, not too loud. "But powerful. It's different. It's honest." He pressed a button. The music began, slow at first. A lonely guitar, crying like wind through trees. Then the drums entered, strong and steady like the footsteps of something massive coming closer. And then, the voice. It wasn't shouting, it was bleeding. The human's voice through the machine was full of pain. It told a story about losing someone, about screaming into the void, about fighting the dark inside your own head. Varela's ears twitched, her heartbeat rose, her chest tightened, and then she started crying. She didn't even realize it at first. Warm tears slid down her cheeks as the voice cried through the machine. It wasn't the sharp pain from before, it was something else. Something deep, buried inside her, now waking up. She wiped her face quickly. Jake looked at her, not surprised. "Yeah, this one hits hard. What is this?" she asked, her voice trembling. "This," Jake said softly, "is grunge. A kind of rock. It's not made to make you dance. It's made to remind you that you're human, you're alien, or anything that feels too much." Varela sat down slowly on the floor, her hands pressed to her ears, not to block the sound but to keep it in. Every word felt like a wound. Every note felt like truth. She could feel her chest shaking. Was this what humans felt? "I thought my ears were bleeding," she whispered. Jake turned the volume lower. "Too much." She shook her head quickly. "No, not pain. It feels like I'm breaking." Jake leaned against the wall and looked at her with soft eyes. "Then the music's doing what it's meant to do?" Varela looked up at him. "Why do you listen to this?" We took a slow sip from his cup, because sometimes I can't say how I feel, but the music can. She stared at the machine, then at the posters on the wall, humans screaming into microphones, jumping into fire, guitars raised like weapons. It looked violent, but it sounded like freedom. "My people," she said, "believe silence heals the soul." Jake nodded. "But sometimes the soul doesn't need silence. Sometimes it needs a voice that screams louder than the pain inside." That sentence stayed with her. A long silence passed. Then Varela reached for the headphones again. She put them on slowly, almost like a ritual. Her fingers were steady. This time Jake waited. She pressed the button. The song played again. This time, she didn't cry. She sat with it. Accepted it. When the music ended, she pulled the headphones off and placed them on her lap. I was scared of it, she whispered, but it understood me. Jake smiled gently. That's why I never turned it off. Varela looked at her. Hands, she had always been afraid of loud things, storms, explosions, raised voices, but this was different. This wasn't noise. It was meaning. She stood up. Jake blinked. You okay? She nodded slowly. I want to hear more. He laughed, but his eyes looked proud. Then come back tomorrow. I'll show you something with even more heart. Varela turned toward the door, but before leaving, she looked back. At the black machine one last time, she wasn't afraid of it anymore. In fact, she couldn't wait to hear it again. Varela didn't sleep that night. She lay under the glowing vines of her forest home, staring up at the sky, but all she could hear was the voice from Jake's music. The sadness, the anger, the fire in its hit wouldn't leave her. It echoed in her chest like her own thoughts finally had a voice. By morning, her mind was already made up. She returned to the human outpost without hesitation, moving fast through the misty trees, no longer caring if her tribe saw her. Her feet moved to a rhythm she didn't understand, but it pushed her forward. Jake was already waiting, leaning against the doorway with a smirk, arms crossed. I was starting to think you'd never leave, he joked. I didn't want to, she replied honestly. He stepped aside to let her in. This time she didn't hesitate. The room felt familiar now. Strange posters, the blinking lights, the hum of machines. But something new caught her Aja guitar, resting against the wall, its body shaped like a weapon of sound. Jake noticed her staring. Want to try a song that'll speak to you? Varela raised an eyebrow. Speak? Like ... how? Jake didn't answer with words. Instead, he walked to his machine, pressed a few buttons, and looked back at her. Just listen. The music began. Varela stopped breathing. The moment the first note hit, she felt it in her bones. A slow, deep hum rolled over the room, like thunder in slow motion. Then came the voice, raw, broken but soft. It sang of isolation, of being surrounded by people but feeling invisible, carrying pain in silence until it cracked like glass. Varela sat down slowly. Each word felt like it was meant for her. The song spoke of someone with no voice, no place. Someone forgotten but who still dared to feel. Her eyes widened, her heart beat faster. She whispered, "This is me." Jake didn't say anything. She just nodded. She listened as the chorus rose, fierce and bold. The lyrics promised that silence couldn't hold her forever, that her story was worth hearing, that even if the world never listened, the music would. Tears filled her eyes again, but not from sadness. For the first time in her life, something understood her completely. When the song ended, she sat in silence for a long time. Jake walked over and sat across from her. I was going to play you something else, but when I found this track, I knew this was your song. She wiped her face, then looked straight into his eyes. Why does it feel like it knows me? 'Cause music sees things we don't. Show, he said. It reaches places words can't. Varela reached out and touched the speaker gently, as if it was alive. In my tribe, no one hears me like this. I speak, but it doesn't matter. Jake leaned closer. It matters to me. She stared at him, unsure what to say. Suddenly she stood up and walked toward the guitar leaning against the wall. Picked it up awkwardly, holding it with both hands. Jake blinked. You want to try? She nodded slowly. I want to make my own sound. Jake grinned. All right, let me show you something. We came over and gently placed her fingers along the strings. Her skin was softer than his, her hands longer and elegant. She held the guitar like it was sacred. Here, he said, guiding her hand. Just strike this string. She did. A low note filled the air. Not sharp, not painful. Dot. Her eyes lit up again. She struck the string. Then another, and another. Jake laughed. You're a natural. I feel it, she whispered. Inside me. He nodded. That's how it starts. You don't just hear music, you become it. Varela held the guitar tight. Her fingers moved slowly, carefully, but with purpose. She didn't know the chords, but her hands explored the sounds, and each one pulled something deeper from her soul. Jake sat back and watched her play. She wasn't playing a song yet. She was discovering her voice. As the sun set beyond the glass window, Varela stood in the golden light with the guitar in her arms, her long silver hair glowing under the last rays of the day, and the music, the real music, had only just begun. The music wasn't playing, but her feet were already moving. Varela walked through the forest, her steps light, but there was a rhythm in her bones now. Her toes tapped the earth softly, her hips swayed with every breath. She didn't notice it at first. It just happened, like the music had stayed inside her, even after the speakers went silent. By the time she reached the edge of the human camp, her body was alive with invisible sound. Jake was sitting on a crate, tuning the guitar. She had touched the day before. He smiled when he saw her. You've got music in your step, he said. Verla blinked. In my step, he pointed at her feet. You were dancing. She looked down. Her cheeks flushed, blue, a sign of embarrassment for her kind. I didn't. Mean too, she said quickly. My body just did it. Jake nodded. That's the best kind of dancing. She stepped inside the outpost, glancing over her shoulder. In my tribe, dancing like this is forbidden. Why? He asked. It's seen as wild, shameful. Movements must be slow, controlled, respectful. Jake raised an eyebrow. Sounds like prison. She didn't laugh, but her lips curved. Just a little. He stood, stretched his arms, and walked to his music machine. Well, this place isn't a prison. And today, you're going to dance. Varela's eyes widened. No. Jake pressed the button. The song hit like lightning. It was fast. The guitar screamed with energy. The drums pounded like a charging army. The voice bold, proud, fearless. Varela staggered back as the sound filled the room. But then something happened. Her foot tapped once. Then again, her shoulders moved with the beat. Her fingers curled and stretched with each pulse. She looked at Jake in shock. I can't stop. You don't have to. The rhythm took over. Legs bent, her arms flowed through the air, her hair whipped around her shoulders as she spun in the middle of the room. She had no training, no steps to follow, only feeling. Jake watched in awe. She danced like a storm, free, wild, electric. And though she didn't know it, she was smiling now, laughing, living in her world. She was supposed to be quiet still, and graceful. Here, she was allowed to exist. When the song ended, she collapsed on the floor, breathing hard, eyes wide, heart racing. Jake handed her a towel. That, he said, was real. She took it, wiping her face. I've never felt like that before. It's because you were finally yourself. She lay on her back, staring at the ceiling. My people would call me broken. Then maybe they've never been whole. Ella turned her head toward him. You speak like a wise elder. Jake chuckled. Nah, I just listen to a lot of music. She looked back at the ceiling. Why is dancing bad in my world? Maybe because it shows truth, Jake said. And some people are scared of truth. Sat in silence for a moment. Then Varela sat up. Play another. Jake raised his eyebrows. Another? She nodded. I want more. So he played, and she danced again. Each beat moved through her, like fire through wind. Her feet hit the ground harder, her hands reached higher. Her chest rose and fell with every scream from the speakers. She had never screamed before. She had. Never been allowed to, but in that moment she did, and it felt like being born. Outside, someone watched. Hidden between the trees, wrapped in dark robes, a figure stood in silence, eyes glowing faintly, watching the alien girl spin and scream, and laugh among the humans. It was a scout from her tribe, and it turned away without a word. She didn't see it coming. The next morning, As sunlight slipped through the misty leaves, Varela stepped out of Jake's outpost with her heart still racing from the music. Her feet moved lightly, and her lips whispered lyrics she barely understood. She felt alive, more than she had ever felt before. But when she reached the river path near her village, her joy vanished. 5 elders stood waiting. Their robes were heavy with silver beads, their faces marked with blue paint. Behind them stood her mother, eyes wide, hands shaking. Lips tight with fear, Varela froze. "You have been seen," the tallest elder said. His voice was cold, sharp like stone cracking. "Dancing in the camp of the humans. Moving your body. Like a creature without thought. Listening to chaos. Touching forbidden sound." Varela's mouth opened, but no words came. The elder continued, "You broke the rules of silence. You brought shame to your bloodline. Let the filth of noise into your spirit." Her mother stepped forward, whispering, "Say it's not true. Say you were only curious." Varela looked at her hands, hands that had touched strings, felt. Rhythm created sound. She looked up at the elders, and she did not lie. "It is true." Gasps moved through the group. One elder dropped his staff in shock. Her mother stepped back as if struck. "I danced," Varela said, louder this time. "I listened. I felt something. Something real." The tall elder's eyes narrowed. "Then you have chosen your path." "What does that mean?" she asked. "You will leave," he said. "You will walk away from this land. Your name will be removed from the story stones. You are no longer of us." Her chest burned. "You would exile me for music?" "We would protect our people from corruption," the elder replied. Varela looked around. No one spoke for her. No one defended her. Even her mother looked down at the dirt. She took one step back. "I am not corrupt," she said. "I am awake." She turned. She walked away from her tribe, her home, her family dash alone. Jake was fixing a broken wire when he heard the knock. He opened the door, surprised to see her so soon. But one look at her face told him everything. "You told them?" he said quietly. "No," she said. "They found me." She walked in slowly, her shoulders tense, her face pale. "They exiled me," she whispered. Jake set down his tools. "I'm sorry." "I'm not," she said, "but I don't know where I belong now." Jake walked over and handed her a glass of water. "Here, sit down. You belong where you feel free." Varela sat, holding the glass tightly. "They said I was corrupted. That music is filth. That dancing is madness." Jake sat beside her. "To them, maybe it is. But to me, music is truth. And dancing is the body's way of saying what the mouth can't." She looked up at him. "Then I choose this truth. I choose noise. I choose rhythm. Even if it costs me everything." Jake smiled, a slow, proud smile. "Then you've already won." For a moment, neither of them said a word. Then Varela stood. "Play it," she said. Jake raised an eyebrow. "Are you sure?" After everything, she nodded. "Play it loud." He did. The speakers shook. The bass rolled like thunder. The guitar screamed, and the voice cried out into the universe. And Varela cast out, heartbroken. Free danced. She danced harder than before. No more fear, no more hiding. Only sound, only her, and far away. Hidden in the trees again, someone else was watching. This time not an elder, a younger girl. A child. From her tribe, eyes wide, heart beating. Watching Varela move like a flame, wild, bright, and untouchable. She didn't look away. The sky burned orange as the Human Music Festival began. Hundreds of people, humans from across the colony, gathered in an open field under the stars. Giant speakers towered like machines of war, wires ran like veins across the ground, and lights pulsed with every heartbeat of the crowd. They wore leather, metal, paint, some had strange markings. Some wore nothing but sound, and in the center of it all stood Jekwitting. Beside him, silent but certain, was Varela. She wore nothing from her tribe anymore. Her soft robes had been replaced with something Jake had helped her find, light fabric. Dark and flowing, with metal threads that shimmered under the lights. Her long silver hair was tied high, her feet bare, her hands painted with red streaks. that matched the sunset sky. Tonight, she was not from the forest. Tonight, she was something else. Jake looked at her. You don't have to do this. Varela didn't blink. I want to. He nodded and handed her the microphone. They've never heard someone like you. She stepped forward onto the stage. The crowd noticed her immediately. Some cheered. Some fell quiet. Others tilted their heads, unsure who or what she was. But she didn't need them to understand her. She only needed them. To hear her, Jake gave the signal. The music started, not soft, not gentle. It was loud, a roar of rhythm and thunder and wild electric fire. The lights exploded into motion. The drums shook the ground, and Varela stood still for just one breath, then moved. Her body twisted, leaped, and spun in ways the crowd had never seen. Every step struck with purpose. Every gesture screamed louder than words. The music poured through her like a storm. She danced not to impress. She danced to exist. She danced because no one had ever let her before, and the crowd responded at first. They watched, then they moved, then they shouted, and then without warning they followed. Hundreds of people stomped and screamed and danced with her. They matched her energy. They fed off it. Varela was the fire at the center of a human storm. From the edge of the field, hidden in shadows, her people had come. The elders stood stiff, silent. But the younger ones, children and teens, watched. Her with wide eyes and open mouths, and then one of them stepped forward. A girl no older than 10. She took off her soft tribe robe and danced. One of the elders tried to stop her. Another child followed. Then another and another. And soon half the children were moving to the beat. Stepping closer to the fire that Varela had lit, the elders couldn't stop them. The forest no longer held their hearts, because their hearts were now beating with drums. As the final song ended, Varela stood on stage, her chest rising and falling. Sweat shining on her skin, tears in her eyes. The crowd roared. Jake climbed up beside her, lifted her hand high in the air. This, he shouted, is what freedom sounds like. The sky erupted in fireworks, long streaks of gold and red. Varela looked out at the sea of faces. Human, alien, young, old, silent, wild. She smiled. The tribe had cast her out for choosing the noise. But the noise had chosen her back and given her something they never had. A voice.